Modern-day research in regards to UFOs occasionally gives reference to portals, or as our ancestors referred to them, as Stargates. It's speculated that these doorways are utilized by extraterrestrials from other realities.
Einstein's theory of relativity theoretically established the possibility of collapsing and connecting two regions of space-time in order to create a wormhole that would enable us to travel between vast distances up to 10 times faster than the speed of light. That was the general idea. From this perspective, the possible existence of Stargate portals in ancient worlds become a matter of technology rather than a superstition or even a mythology. As a result, it's been suggested that the astronomical alignment of placement of certain ancient sites, understood in the context of ancient religious beliefs, are the people of the time that may raise the possibility that certain ancient sites served as some type of Stargate portals. But what were they used for? It was once just a theory that UFOs were somehow utilising key locations to these earth or doorways. And of course, these locations, now in the 21st century, are considered more theory than they are mysterious myths or legends. There is some evidence to support them.
One of the most talked about doorways is that of the Hayumaca in Peru, or better known as the Gate of the Gods, discovered by Jose Luis Delgado Mamani in 1996 while attempting to learn more about the location due to him taking a job as a tour guide. The mysterious location is described by native tribes as an active gateway to the land of the gods. Once Mamani was told of this, his dreams were invaded for many years of this doorway. He dreamt that the pathway leading up to the huge doorway was made from what he could describe a pink-coloured marble-type stone, and that within the large door, a much smaller one would open with a brilliant blue light surrounding it and within a shimmering light. Interestingly enough, the huge doorway actually consists of two in a T-shape, the largest measuring an impressive 22 foot by 22 foot square, with the smaller one within its centre measuring 6.5 feet in height. The carving is set within a huge rock that is strangely crisscrossed with unusual straight gouges that almost look like machine marks. The native tribesman informed Mamani that the larger doorway was used by the gods themselves and the smaller one used by us mortals. Also that the gods were giants, and on occasion mortal humans could become immortal themselves if the gods wished it so. Only those thought to be courageous and honourable were granted to live amongst the gods. Legends speak of one such mortal. During the 16th century, at the time when the Spanish arrived in Peru to loot Inca riches, a high Incan priest by the name Amaru Maru fled the temple with his golden sun disk, a treasure that was revered by many that had been named the Key of the Gods of the Seven Rays. Amaru discovered the Gate of the Gods at Hayumaca and saw that the doorway was guarded by several shaman priests. Once he presented them the sun disk, the shaman conducted a ritual consisting of meditation and chanting, which after a short time Amaru started to feel a pressure build in his ears. Then suddenly there was a bright flash emanating from the gateway. He turned to see the smaller doorway open and beyond a shimmering light. leaving the sun disk behind, he was able to pass through the doorway and onto another reality, a reality the shamans knew as the land of the gods.
The Gate of the Gods has been, at some time in the distant past, carved out of a natural rock face. The huge mysterious door-like structure lies in the Hayumaku Mountains region of South Peru near Lake Titicaca, about 35 kilometers from the city of Puno. This location has long been revered by local Indians, you could say, as the City of the Gods, although no actual city has ever been discovered there. The area is known as the Stone Forest and consists of strange rock formations, and which I have to say they do resemble buildings, people and other artificial structures. Though officially the location of the Gate of the Gods is said to be an ancient Inca site, it's clearly not. Those that have lived there for a long time, the many generations of them, claim that they actually found, our ancestors found this, and that it wasn't constructed by the Inca. Whoever built the Gate of the Gods is a complete mystery, and we can only say for sure that it's most certainly pre-Incan, and of course the location must have been of great importance.
Investigators and researchers visiting the location discovered an interesting indentation in the rock on the right-hand column of the smaller doorway. On close examination, they found that a slim disc object could in fact be inserted into the indentation to be held there by the surrounding rock. Was this some sort of keyhole to the door? If so, then Amaru's sun disk may have been appropriately named. Some visiting the location have managed to capture strange energy emanating from the doorway. According to information, several years ago, 2 researchers visiting the gateway conducted a number of acoustic experiments that led to one of the researchers vanishing for over 20 minutes. His colleague and fellow researcher couldn't find him anywhere. A short time later, the researcher turned to suddenly find his colleague was back. He looked pale and confused, almost nauseous. When asked where he had been, he replied, "I never want to speak of it." And as the years passed, he never did, nor ever visit the location again.
In 2007, while searching for the remains of shipwrecks, scientists discovered a stone structure 12 meters or 40 feet below the surface of Lake Michigan, thought to be around about 9,000 years old. The structure has been dubbed Michigan's equivalent of Stonehenge. While a lot of mainstream scientists are skeptical about the age of the site and if it's even any relevance whatsoever, many believe that it is in fact some type of Stargate or wormhole. The site has also claimed several bizarre disappearances and gained the title the Michigan Triangle. There have also been numerous UFO sightings over the lake and in the same vicinity, as well as a handful of USO objects. Reported sightings of things under the water. There are many locations of like that around the world, and they are thought to represent ancient stargates or portals. Some look almost identical to the Gate of the Gods in Peru and are just as much a mystery. We don't know what they are, we don't know who built them, and is there anything special about them? Are they really portals?
The Gate of the Gods is almost identical to the carved portal of Yazilakela found in Turkey, and shares the very same legends in regards to it acting as a doorway between worlds. It's also interesting to point out that considerable UFO activity is witnessed by the local natives of Peru many times, and that they believe them to be the chariots of the gods, a very suitable name we may recognize thanks to the investigative researcher and author Eric von Daniken.
What is interesting is that we are finding correlations between the UFO phenomena and ancient sites, some of which are being referred to as locations where the ancients had stargates or portals, doorways to other realities. And they are sometimes represented in temples or underground structures. They are very unusual, and of course there are several of these throughout Europe, but many around the world, especially throughout South America. However, is there certain measurable evidence of these things that exist? Can we measure them? What real tangible evidence do we have? Well, it would seem when the manifestation of these objects that are appearing in those locations seem to leave some type of residue behind. And that is measurable. There seems to be an effect in what we might refer to as a gravitational well. And they can be measured by specialized equipment, such as time displacement meters. You can also visually see the effects of this anomaly, usually lasting anything up to 48 hours after the initial event, of lasers being set up. And of course, you start to see a bend in the laser line as very similar to pulling a bow, a string of a bow. It's causing this laser to bend. What we tend to do is set them up on a large target, and we can sometimes see the drift off the target, indicating something. Gravitational, magnetic gravity is pulling backwards and forwards on the light, because not even light can escape gravitational waves. This phenomenon tends to be only short-lived, of course, but it is being measured, and there are also other things that have been measured at those ancient sites where these so-called doorways are supposed to exist, and that is minute areas of voltage appearing from literally nowhere. Tests carried out in Ireland during the summer solstice 2019 on several locations produced up to 300 millivolts. Enough to light small lights, to be honest with you, LEDs and things. We don't know where that's coming from, but it was there and it was generated during the time of the solstice. We still got a lot to learn about these ancient locations and the energies that upwell from there at certain given times. So maybe the phenomena is somehow drawn to those locations, or our ancestors built these locations in those areas because they knew they existed. One thing is for sure, there definitely seems to be some connection between UFOs, portals and doorways and ancient sites. And of course, we're going to have to try and unravel the mystery, the connections between these locations, to try and figure out what's going on. Are they some type of doorway? There are people that claim to have had certain experiences where they seem to have disappeared into other realities. We don't know. One thing we do know, though, is that they are measurable, and be it sound, light, frequencies, even effects, gravitational wells, these are all measurable things that we can use with modern day technology. We just need to get out there and try and find out more answers, to be honest with you.
7,500 miles from Peru lies the site of Abu Gorab in Egypt, another location steeped in myth and mystery. Said to be one of the oldest of ancient sites on the planet, Abu Gorab sits on top of an alabaster platform, better known as Egyptian crystal, and rumoured to be attuned to the Earth's frequency of 7.8 Hz. It's theorized that this low frequency can enhance human senses of communication and align human consciousness with sacred energies. Just as in Hayu Marca in Peru, Abu Gorab is thought to be the location of another doorway to the beyond.
Interesting discoveries in acoustic research and light frequency tests are actually being carried out. If we look at the 3 pyramids of the Giza Plateau, there is one pyramid where it's said to be incomplete inside. However, when acoustic tests were carried out in these locations, they found that they all generated the same frequency, which basically means that they were all acoustically designed. And when they reached a certain frequency, maybe that is when they put tools down. We don't know. Is it really incomplete? Would completing that pyramid inside change the frequency? We don't know, but there may be resonant chambers throughout the Egyptian pyramids, as there are resonant chambers around other ancient sites around the world. There seems to be some connection between acoustics in these locations and some type of doorway phenomena that's taking place. Also, terahertz frequency light is another thing. When light coming from the sun at sunset and sunrise, which generates around about, I believe, a 450, 460 terahertz frequency, it comes into that chamber. And again, it's seemingly something is taking place. What is it? Why was it so special to our ancients, ancestors, that light on the solstices and equinox passed into these resonant chambers? something was certainly going on. Is it a combination of light frequency and sound frequency which is activating something? It has been theorized that the possibility of people being in these resonant chambers, which are designed, some are designed at 111 hertz, 110 hertz, the healing frequencies we could say. Is something going on in there when providing this acoustic and frequency, and of course allowing this light to come in at the same time? A lot more research is certainly required, but it's interesting. It's interesting that we are slowly but surely chiseling away and trying to find answers about what our ancient civilizations left behind, and what were they doing and why they were utilizing these locations.
Egyptian legends speak of their communications and travel between the worlds of mortals and gods, almost mirroring the legends of the Cherokee Native Americans who talk of formless thought beings who travel on a wave of sound from their homeworld in the Pleiades star system. As well as Abu Gorab being referred to as some kind of Stargate, there are also signs of what some would perceive to be advanced technology having been used to create the site. Precise circular holes have somehow been drilled into the alabaster. Abu Gorab is part of the pyramid complex at Abu Sur and considered by the Egyptian people as one of the oldest ceremonial centers on the planet. Egyptologists state that Abu Gorab was constructed by the Egyptian 5th dynasty. However, ancient Kemetic oral tradition says Abu Gorab was already ancient by the time of the 5th dynasty. Such problems in aging leaves Abu Gorab a mystery as to who and why it was created. Stones consisting of colossal red granite blocks, each weighing several tons, have been cut with precision, polished and placed as facing stones to a pyramid which once stood in the location. The stones are laid with such accuracy that it's extraordinary. The casing stones to the pyramid, for some unknown reason, are scattered around like Lego blocks, as if a huge hand had swatted it like a sandcastle. At the center of the site stands an alabaster mound, with the remains of an obelisk atop it, designed in such a way that it represents the 4 cardinal directions of north, east, south, and west. The vibrations transmitted through the alabaster and the other surrounding materials are said to create a doorway in which the gods manifested. Probably one of the strangest discoveries at Abu Gorab is the huge giant square alabaster dishes that have strange gear-like designs carved out on top of them. It's assumed that these massive basins were designed to hold the blood of sacrificed animals, which allegedly ran through the perfectly round channels cut into the surrounding paving. However, this does not make any sense, as the suspected drain holes are situated near the rim of the basin and not the bottom. However, when analysis of the area was carried out, there was not a single drop of DNA or any other form of evidence to support this misconception. What is known is that the basins are incredibly smooth inside and show signs of them being cut out using some kind of circular tool, suggesting that whoever manufactured them did so using an unidentifiable technology. Local farmers and guides have reported seeing strange lights from the area, a blue glow that can be seen occasionally in the dark of the desert, emanating from the location, sometimes accompanied with an unusual humming sound.
Carved on a massive piece of stone wall and mostly hidden between boulders and cave systems in a place known as, if I can say this right, Ranmasu Ural, is what is believed to be a star map, or a star chart in fact. The symbols carved on the rock are said to be some type of code that opens the Stargate and allows the opener to travel from this world to other areas throughout the universe. Directly opposite the star map are 4 stone seats, or you could say chairs. In many ancient Native American legends, Stargates or portals were represented by rotating circles. Similar star maps have also been found in other ancient sites said to be Stargates, and some stone doorways are also believed to be portals, such as the one found in Bolivia.
In western Bolivia, at an altitude of 13,000 feet, stands the ancient city of Tiwanaku, which was once the capital of an empire that extended into present-day Peru and Chile, which flourished from 300 to 1000 AD, and is believed by many historians to be one of the most significant cities of the ancient Americas. According to the legend, this location was the cradle of the first humans on planet Earth. created by the sun god Lord Viracocha. It is unknown as to how old exactly Tiwanaku is. Some researchers believe the city could in fact date back to 14,000 years BC. The most significant ruin of Tiwanaku is the ancient portal known as the Gate of the Sun, a doorway constructed from a single andesite block, cut with machine precision, weighing approximately 12 tons and around 9.8 feet in height and 13 foot. When the Gate of the Sun was rediscovered by European explorers during the mid-19th century, the megalith had a large crack passing through it and was lying horizontally on the ground. Though it stands in the same location it was discovered, it is believed that this is not its original location. Like the Gate of the Gods at Hayamaka, the Gate of the Sun is believed to be a doorway to the land of the gods. Many researchers believe the purpose of the gate is somehow connected astronomically. At the top of the arch is a carving of a winged figure, assuming to be that of the sun god with rays of light emanating from behind his head and holding two large staffs. The construction of the gate is an incredible feat of engineering using precision mathematics that leaves modern man perplexed in regards to how our ancestors knew of such scientists and technology.
So what do portals and stargates represent? Well, the theory is that they're actually another reality to the realm of the gods, whatever that be. I mean, what is the realm of the gods? I mean, we could say that it's the star people from ancient days that descended from the stars, or descended from the skies to teach us language and agriculture and so on and so forth. We don't really know. It seems, though, that a lot of these ancient civilizations around the planet, around about the same time, were worshipping serpent gods for some reason. And it also seemed that their civilizations abruptly ended, such as cities were just abandoned overnight, literally. And we don't know where they went. We don't know what happened to them. But what was left behind were locations which are said to be stargates or portals to other realities. People visiting these locations have reported strange lights in the skies, unusual humming sounds, and lights and flashes coming from stones. What is going on there? Is it these unusual energies that are appearing there, or is there some type of phenomena that's taking place there? We don't have all the answers, but what we can say is that the ancient ancestors may have been communicating with something else, be it the gods, be it some beings from another reality, or extraterrestrials even. We don't have all the answers. But they seemingly were. I mean, the civilizations all over the world were doing pretty much the same thing at around the same time, which is interesting because, you know, we generally thought initially when we read science books that, you know, we didn't know the Earth was round, we wasn't traveling backwards and forwards across the Pacific or Atlantic. I guarantee that is just a complete, utter rubbish. We have to give credit, more credit, to our ancient ancestors, really. I mean, they achieved so many amazing things that we just don't know how to get our heads around even today. One thing is for sure, they were certainly very different than you and me.
Surrounding the sun god are 48 carved depictions of what look to be bird-like humans said to be the messengers of God, similar to the depictions of the bird-like humans found in Sumerian carvings throughout Mesopotamia. The Peruvian people believe that the doorway becomes active at certain times and is seen as a shimmering light of blue. Stepping through it will take those to the mystical land of the gods. There are many places throughout the world considered to be stargates, doorways or portals, all of which seem to be connected with ancient sites around the world and even ancient burial tombs found in the United Kingdom and Ireland. The Hypogeum in Malta is one such location, an underground prehistoric burial site that was discovered in 1902. This complex made up of interconnecting rock-cut chambers has 3 distinct levels, thought to be 5,500 years old, one of which is a resonance chamber referred to as the Oracle. The alcoves serve as a location where shaman or priests would sit while performing a certain chant that creates a frequency of 111 Hz. The chamber has been specifically built to resonate at that frequency, thus focusing the sound at the central point of the room. Scientists have confirmed that if sitting in this central location of the resonance chamber, the subject will become affected by the 111 Hz. MRI scans have shown that when immersed in the sound of 111 Hz, the brain switches off the prefrontal cortex and deactivates the language center that is responsible for holistic processing, creativity, and intuition. This reaction can result in a form of meditation considered to be divine and induce a trance-like state that some believe allows you to become connected with the gods by opening a doorway to another reality. A practice that seems to yet again mirror those carried out in other ancient sites around the world.
The location of the Hypogeum in Malta is cloaked in mystery. Though many of the deep caverns were once associated with supernatural practices, there have been also a number of strange disappearances, you could say, some of which include explorers, geologists, and even a class of students. What is interesting, though, that many years have passed since a lot of these reports, and occasionally, just occasionally, visitors report hearing the voices of students or other seemingly voices coming from empty caverns as being somehow beckoning visitors deeper and deeper within the labyrinth. You can visit the Hypogeum, however, be prepared to be told that there is no filming, there is no photography, and there is even no audio recordings allowed. And of course, only small groups of 20, which are constantly overlooked by security officers. Why is this? And most importantly, what secret could be being kept from us?
Another mystical location situated in Ireland is the New Grange Burial Mound. Like the Hypogeum, it's designed at a resonance chamber attuned to 110 Hz. Again, priests would perform a chant that creates the 110 Hz, allowing those who are sat in the center of the chamber to experience an abrupt shift in their prefrontal cortex, resulting in a temporary switching from left to right-sided dominance in regards to the processing of emotion. This process would turn on an area of the brain that scientists in biobehavioral studies believe can change mood, enhance empathy, and social behavior. Legends associated with the mound talk of passing through a doorway to the underworld, a mystical location known to be associated with the gods. Such ancient sites are often associated with reports of strange lights, UFOs, and even time loss. Could it be that our ancestors were knowledgeable of other realities and how to possibly access them?
There seems to be growing evidence in regards portals and multiple realities. Research carried out into the connections between ancient sites, UFOs, and key locations have been undertaken and documented under the study name Project Doorway, which found evidence of phenomena at specific locations known as positive magnetic anomalies. This study also shows a correlation between the locations and UFOs, the paranormal, sightings of cryptids, and even strange disappearances. Slowly but surely, the evidence is pointing towards that such phenomena may have been right under our noses all this time. Not really out there, but right here and kind of right now, which can be a bit alarming.
In the Smithsonian magazine in 2011, Dr. Lisa Randall from Harvard University said, "I believe an extra dimension may exist close to our familiar reality, hidden except for a bizarre sapping of the strength of gravity as we see it." Maybe it's time to go back to the drawing board and carry out extensive studies at these ancient sites with some of the best scientific equipment we can lay our hands on, and attempt to get some real answers to a mystery that circumnavigates the globe.
It seems that UFOs have a connection to energy locations around the planet. You could say it's the Earth's energy grid, or layers, for example. Now, if we look at Earth energy grids, the Earth energy grid, when looking at the global map, will point out key locations where there's these upwellings of energy. And interestingly, these key locations are like the Giza Plateau in Easter Island and so on and so forth. It would seem our ancient ancestors may have known this somehow. They were more in tune. Now, the thing is, when we talk about ancient past, we can dig up skeletons and bones and things like that, but they don't really tell us anything about the individual. that ancient individual, how were they communicating? I mean, spiritually, in consciousness. We can't measure that in bones. We really don't know. Something significantly must have been different with our ancestors, because they seemingly must have been in tune with natural energies around the earth, and specific locations were built on key areas, such as the Earth's energy grid, just as they've done throughout Europe, when building certain places and churches and towers on lays. And it's also interesting is that about 35% of sightings that take place in the UK are reported on lays, very close to lays. There seems to be some correlation between energy and UFOs. UFOs have been associated to electrical storms in the sky as well, and also been filmed on by NASA videos from space. And they've caught UFOs in cloud formations where electrical storms are taking place. Maybe they gravitate to it. Maybe there's some interest between these energy upwellings and the phenomena. We can say for an absolute certainty that certain locations like Machu Picchu in Peru, these areas were very, very specific where they built these cities. The whole mountain of Machu Picchu is just one great big magnetic peak, and in fact the very top of it is what you might is this stone shape. It's literally like a square, and that's the actual peak of the mountain. And anybody going close by it with a compass, you'll see how magnetic that is. It's just spinning and spinning. This isn't by chance. The ancients built these locations on those sites for a particular reason. We just don't know why. Over the last few years, there's been a lot of talk in regards to time travel, quantum realities, and even wormhole technology. Though such speculations aren't new, stretching back to days of Tesla, even Einstein. New discoveries are being made, with university physicists claiming there are other realities very close to our own and are identical, except for an unusual sapping of gravity in certain locations. Even NASA have confirmed now, claiming portals are real, and have given them the scientific name positive magnetic anomalies, or electron diffusion regions. So, not so much theoretics really. Therefore, time travel could actually exist. Well, in a sense.
One of the most bizarre of all the convoluted aspects of superscience, i.e. the kind of technology that allegedly permits alien spacecraft to visit the planet Earth, is the enigma of time travel, or the ability to move from the present day to a fixed point either in the past or in the future.
The subject of time travel, as described by Jules Verne's Time Machine, could be a little bit problematic. You've got to take into consideration that staying in one particular location through the process of time, you have to consider the Earth is actually moving constantly through space. So where we are currently now, we wouldn't be in a year's time. We'd be probably floating somewhere out in space if it's a very localized phenomena. However, theoretically, there are other concepts of time travel that might apply, which could be plausible.
It is a subject that has fascinated science fiction writers since the genre was created, and was celebrated by the author H.G. Wells in his classic novel The Time Machine, which went on to be filmed twice. The manner in which Wells imagined his apparatus was very much a product of the 19th century in Victorian Britain, a mechanical device that seems to have used the then fledgling science of electricity as its source of power. This was admirably recreated by the special effects designers in the first 1960 George Pal version of the film, where it resembles a kind of partially enclosed sleigh with a rotating umbrella-like device at the rear. The 2002 remake, directed by Simon Wells, the grandson of the author, features a similar construction, but in this case, light and rotating prisms appear to provide the motive force. In both examples, the inventor climbs aboard, sets the desired date on a dial, then commences his journey by pulling on a short lever. The concept of a time-traveling vehicle or machine has been used many times since, in a number of guises in various science fiction films. For Wells to have even contemplated such a scheme speaks volumes for his imagination and perhaps foresight. When the concept was considered utterly impossible by the science of his era, but now, using the arcane calculations of quantum mechanics, the idea becomes at least theoretically possible.
When scientifically looking at phenomenology, which is the phenomena of UFOs, the paranormal, the supernatural, the metaphysical, we could say that there are aspects within these fields of studies which might represent something which could be quantum related, be it UFOs suddenly materializing and dematerializing. Where are they going? Are they going through into some other reality? Or the manifestation of paranormal occurrences suddenly taking place and then reoccurring in other locations, poltergeist type infestations. There's lots of different things that could be attributed to quantum physics. The problem is that I don't think we really understand it. We are really only getting into it over the last several decades, maybe the last 60, 70 years. We've theorized about quantum mechanics, but now we're really only starting to get into it. We might be starting to find answers to why and how some phenomena might actually be present and that it can be witnessed by people. It's very strange. I think a lot of this stuff and mysteries surrounding planet Earth lie in the quantum reality, the area of quantum studies. And it would seem little bits of evidence is actually coming forward to prove that some things seemingly are associated in this manner.
Unfortunately, although to actually construct a device capable of bringing this about is, for all practical purposes, highly unlikely, it has not stopped people from claiming that they have indeed done so using two quite clearly defined processes. One method apparently assumes that it's entirely possible to move a physical body in both space and time, while the other claims to move only consciousness and awareness, which on the face of it seems to be a more practical and attainable proposition. One of those who claim to have physically traveled in time is one John Titor, an enigmatic character supposedly from 2036, whose assertions appeared briefly between January and March 2001 in a series of posts on an internet time travel site.
Professor Stephen Hawking had on numerous occasions touched on the topic of time warps, but it misses something. What if we've met time travelers without even knowing it? Or what if we've met them and didn't even believe them? One of the most perplexing instances is that of John Titor, who claimed to have travelled to the year 2030. Titor once stated, "My time machine is a stationary mass temporal displacement unit manufactured by General Electric. The unit is powered by top two-spin dual positive singularities that produce a standard off-Tipler sinusoid." Yeah, intriguing, isn't it? And when discussing his choice of words with engineers and scientists, they too are a little intrigued, we could say.
Titor's acknowledgement of Frank Tipler's theories came in the form of an unexplained concept called a Tipler sinusoid, and a nod to other physicists came from the application of rotating micro-miniature singularities. These, he insisted, were present in the device he used, which resembled a small rectangular box. Like Tipler's spinning cylinder, these would have the necessary ability to generate the gravity forces required to rupture space-time. But since they are in effect small black holes, just how they were supposed to be used, let alone controlled, is still something of a mystery. This caused a furore concerning the initial activation of the European Large Hadron Collider, LHC, which is situated on the Swiss-French border. It was a similar mindset considered by the physicist Edward Teller, who predicted that the first ever nuclear explosion during the wartime Manhattan Project might ignite the atmosphere and extinguish all life on the planet. Fortunately, it didn't. With this in mind, and assuming the worst does not happen, the LHC might just provide unexpected insights into time travel. Incidentally, Fear of the unknown was the reason that the maps drawn by early cartographers carried the dire warning, "Here be dragons," on areas of the ocean that had not been explored. In common with the machine used in another film that used a time travel-based plot, Back to the Future, Titor's device was securely attached to the car, in this case a Chevrolet Corvette, rather than Back to the Future's DeLorean, in which he made time jumps. He also posted impressive-looking diagrams of the object itself on the internet. Age Nost is another character who at the time was living in New Orleans in the USA, claims to have devised a machine that allowed him to release his consciousness into the oceans of time. The machine does not use esoteric applications of physics, but instead appears to be a transmitter of sorts that generates a strong electromagnetic field in the radio frequency bands. This method apparently allows travel at will, both forward and backwards in time, although accounts of the effectiveness rely entirely on the subjective evidence supplied by its inventor.
Studies carried out by Project Doorway in 2017 studied the apportation of an object during a paranormal occurrence. And what was interesting is that the results came back from this, and it was an apported mug, in fact, and it was cross-examined against the test mug, which wasn't the apport. And of course, they weighed the same, they look the same, they feel the same. There really is no way to tell the difference until you start to look under the microscope. And when you look under the microscope, we came up with this. On the apported mug had gone through some definite change. You could clearly see a smoothing pattern in the ceramics under the microscope. It had gone through some form of diathermic reaction. Now, researchers had heard, a number of researchers had heard, and myself, about this phrasing diathermic reactions, and we weren't too sure where we'd heard this before. But interestingly, it would seem that a UFO manifesting close to the ground, which people do report, UFOs just suddenly being seen close to the ground, have sometimes, on occasion, affected plant growth or plant life around it. When analysing those plants, which is known as the biological traumality of these plants, when looking under the microscope, this is where we also found the reference diathermic reactions. So a hypothesis here is that the manifestation of a UFO and the manifestation of a mug during a poltergeist infestation are utilising the very same physics. Is it that these things are coming through another reality, from another time maybe? I mean, we even question, are apports exactly the same thing that once was there? It might look the same, but is it the same? Under the microscope, it clearly isn't.
A third method of time travelling is a device called a bioenergizer. It was created by the now sadly deceased Tony Bassett, and the claims made for this machine have been at least independently tested and appear to be partially effective, although the inventor promoted the use of guided meditation as part of the transition process. The introduction of the technique, like guided meditation, is commonplace with psychologists, counselors, and others within the medical support field to induce relaxed mental and physical states conducive to suggestion. Of those who have tried using this device, very few have actually gone much beyond the instructions given in the guided meditation. But those who did actually succeed in letting go, one described a sensation of traveling out into deep space among the stars. This should come as no surprise since, as with hypnosis, not everyone is susceptible to suggestion, but this must raise doubts concerning the efficacy of the machine. Following a meeting with the nephew of the late Sir Oliver Lodge, who, along with the physicist Sir William Crookes, was one of the early investigators into psychic phenomena, Tony Bassett developed an interest in the promotion of out-of-body experiences, or OOBEs. He was also introduced to a process known as the Christos technique, which is a method of deliberately introducing OOBEs. These experiences allegedly occur when consciousness leaves the physical body and travels through space and time, which in this context is defined as the astral plane. This technique was used on various people with claims of a 20 to 30% success rate. It is arguable that the process itself is analogous to the remote viewing program instigated by the CIA under the auspices of the Stargate project, where operatives were trained to allow their consciousness to travel to locations indicated by no more than map coordinates. Before leaving the bioenergizer, Tony Bassett evidently had plans to actually build this device into the walls of a room to act as a permanent installation, although there is no evidence that this was ever done. Bassett also constructed a musical oddity called a theremin. This instrument has popped up several times over the years and could be regarded, along with the ring modulator and similar electronic devices, as a forerunner of modern electronic synthesizers. The theremin was first invented in 1919 by a Russian, Leon Theremin, and basically comprises two antennae radiating an electromagnetic field that responds to the proximity of objects, in this case the human hand. It is played by musicians altering the proximity of their hands in relation to the antennae, thereby altering the electromagnetic field, and the result is then amplified and played through the speakers. The sound is, for want of a better word, rather spacey and eerie. The device featured on the soundtracks of several early sci-fi films, including the classic The Day the Earth Stood Still, and also in various TV shows. However, will time travel ever become a reality, or will it ever exist as an anomaly in the equations of particle physics? Certainly, as we have seen, there are many claims that it is a reality, although if so, it may be more likely in a non-physical sense. So what are we to make of John Titor?
John Titor is the name used on several bulletin boards during the year 2000 and 2001 by a poster claiming to be of an American military time traveller from the year 2036. As you might guess, Titor made numerous vague and specific predictions regarding catastrophes that were to take place in the year 2004 and beyond, including a war, of course. None of which came true. Well, that's what was written on the internet. In fact, John Titor confirmed one theory, the Everett Wheeler model of quantum physics, also known as the many worlds theory, I believe it's called. He said was the correct explanation of the universe. There were in fact multiple timelines and scenarios, all of which happened in the past. Now, some years later, physicists actually concluded that very same thing. Some people believe John Titor's completely, without ever asking him anything or quizzing him, just outright belief. Others became obsessed with errors and inconsistencies. You could say digital detective trying to uncover the truth behind the story. Before it was over, Titor would make his way to the animation studio in Japan where he worked, and then, funny enough, the wrestling ring in Pennsylvania, and of course, a prison cell in even Oregon. Some believe that Titor's talking about coming catastrophes, that it somehow changed the outcome of future events. This would fall into the multiple reality hypothesis. So, should we close the book on time travel now? Or could there actually still be something unusual going on here?
An initial and reasonable reaction is to assume that he was part of an elaborate and intricate hoax. But why? And for whose benefit? Is it just a money-making scam? John Titor's website sold various items, or was it an attempt to drip-feed a great secret into the public domain? There was another shadowy group called the Wingmakers, who supposedly traveled back from the future to the 8th century AD to leave a time capsule for us to find. Again, one must ask why. Why not just travel to the here and now and communicate with us directly, rather than leave the information and clues lying around for close on 1200 years? The Wingmakers have much in common with the ideals of the Space Brothers, because their message seems peaceful and their philosophy is one of infinite understanding. However, as far as Aj Nost and Tony Bassett are concerned, Nost hosts a radio show in the USA, and Bassett, who died in 2013, have faded into relative obscurity. Neither of them seem to have made much money from their enterprises, so why bother? Was this, to quote the artist Andy Warhol, their 10 minutes of fame perhaps? Sadly, the type of information they presented was more likely to earn them ridicule and notoriety than fame, so perhaps they did genuinely believe that they had a method of reaching beyond the strictures of time and space. The basic premise of time travel itself, although theoretically possible in the esoteric equation of quantum mechanics, is fraught with many pitfalls and anomalies. Logically, if a future race like the Wingmakers sent back this information for our, and ultimately their benefit, then we must have acted upon it and it must have worked. Or conversely, our descendants are perhaps not happy with their lot and are attempting to change their present by persuading us to alter our future. If nothing else, it is encouraging to think that mankind, as a species, has not managed to destroy itself and is still here on planet Earth. Which brings us back to the subterranean Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland. What if some experiments using this device really does finally bring down the barriers of space-time and permit travel to and from the past and future? What then? How would we react? With panic or joy? Or would the organization who operate it even tell us what they've done? Sadly, this is unknown and perhaps unknowable, and ultimately perhaps it is better that way.
Switzerland's Large Hadron Collider, LHC, can be called a time machine in one sense. It enables us to examine conditions as they were during the universe's early stages. But it's the 27-kilometer long particle accelerator that's questionable. Is it really a time machine, or what you might say in regarding science fiction? Can it create conditions that allow matter, radiation, or information to travel back and forth in time? That's the million-dollar question. In 2009, two physicists working at the facility proposed that influences from the future could have been responsible for the collider's initial failure to operate, with nature effectively sabotaging efforts to get it up and running. This calls to mind the grandfather paradox. Now, we probably may have heard of this, and one possible response to it would be, which goes something like this. If you travel into the past and to kill your grandfather, thus preventing your own existence, events would intervene to frustrate any such attempt. This starts to get a bit complicated, like a bad sci-fi time travel movie, in fact. Who knows, by delving into time travel hypotheses, what results could actually occur? It's kind of something from the future, or science fiction books. Or is it?
Many are now aware, thanks to international press coverage of an official study into UFOs by the US Pentagon. The Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, AATIP, was a secret investigation into unknown aerial phenomena and was funded by the United States government and first made public on December 16, 2017. We have learnt that AATIP ran from 2007 to 2012 with a funding of $22 million. The program began in the United States Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA, although the official AATIP program has now come to an end, and a number of interested professionals have founded a non-profit organization called To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science, or better known as the TTSA. The program was initiated by US Senator Harry Reid with the help of Nevada businessman and governmental contractor Robert Bigelow, and the late Senators Ted Stevens and Daniel Inouye. During an interview, Senator Reid said, "I think it's one of the good things I did in my congressional service. I've done something that no one has done before."
It is alleged that the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program has generated a 490-page report that documents UFO sightings from around the world from several decades. However, at this time, the report has not been released to the general public.
A gentleman known as Louis Elizondo claims he headed the AATIP program before resigning from the Pentagon duties in October 2017, allegedly in protest of government secrecy and opposition to the investigation program, stating in his resignation letter to U.S. Defense Secretary James Mattis that the AATIP program was for some reason not being taken seriously.
The United States Department of Defense has stated that in 2012 the program was terminated. However, the reason for the termination remains unclear. We don't really know why there does seem to be some type of confusion over Luis Elizondo's involvement in ATIP, for an example. The Pentagon spokesman Christopher Sherwood recently stated the following.
Mr. Elizondo had no responsibilities with regard to the AATIP program while he worked in OUSDI, the Office of Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, up until the time he resigned in 2017. Benjamin Radford wrote in Skeptical Inquirer that among what little information has been released by the program are several short videos of military jets encountering something they couldn't identify. The release of the 3 videos showing what looks like to be US military encounters with unknown aerial phenomena have been referred to as the Tic Tac UFO, Go Fast, and Gimbal. In January of 2019, a complete list of projects that were funded by the program became available. Of the 37 listed studies, a few stand out. Traversable Wormholes, Stargates, and Negative Energy was led by Eric W. Davis of EarthTech International Incorporated, which was founded by Harold Putoff, who was formerly involved in Project Stargate. Another study program called Invisibility Cloaking was headed by German scientist Ulf Leonhardt, a professor at the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel. And also Warp Drive, Dark Energy, and the manipulation of extra dimensions was attributed to the theoretical physicist Richard Obozy, director of the non-profit Icarus Interstellar.
It's interesting to point out that these projects are likely to involve the study and the correlation between positive magnetic anomalies and UFOs, as well as a hyper-evasiveness of the phenomenon and their capabilities of invisibility, maneuverability, and materialization into our reality.
Luis Elizondo has announced his involvement in founding an aerospace, science, paranormal, and entertainment company called To the Stars Academy for Arts and Science. Former Deputy Assistant Director of Defense for Intelligence Christopher Mellon is also involved in TTSA, along with co-founder Tom DeLonghi, a musician from the group Blink-182, and several others. AATIP have released information in regards to their studies into the 5 observables. Project Doorway, a 5-year scientific study program, has also released information in regards to their 5 evidential conclusions. AATIP lists their 5 observables as anti-gravity lift, sudden and instantaneous acceleration, hypersonic velocities without signatures, low observability or cloaking, and transmedium travel. Project Doorway, ran by researchers Barry Fitzgerald and Steve Mira, have concluded their findings in Phase 1 of their studies. The 5 evidential conclusions are that the phenomenon predates historical documentation, that there are paranormal and metaphysical attributes to many UFOs, that they can demonstrate a conscious connection with the observers, can generate infrasonic frequencies, and are utilizing key locations as X-points, or better known as positive magnetic anomalies. Also associated with the TTSA is the ADAM Research Project, Acquisition and Data Analysis of Materials. This project is described as the following on the ADAM Project TTSA website. The project is an academic research program focused on exotic materials for technology innovation and will focus on the collection and scientific evaluation of material samples obtained through reliable reports of advanced aerospace vehicles of unknown origin. Bigelow Aerospace, part of the Pentagon's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, AATIP, reportedly modified buildings held in Las Vegas for the storage of metal alloys and other materials that former Department of Defense (DoD) intelligence officer Luis Elizondo and program contractors claimed were recovered from unidentified aerial phenomena. Elizondo is currently employed as TTSA's Director of Global Security and Special Programs. The project has, in part, been created to examine those anomalous materials if they exist. As soon as TTS Academy is notified that materials are available, a thorough effort will be made to document their origin and credibility, followed by the establishment of chain of custody procedures and ownership protocols, the statement said. In addition to reviewing the materials for their potential significance as evidence of exotic origin, the analysis will evaluate materials for such characteristics as exceptional strength, lightweight build, and any unusual advanced properties that potentially could contribute to the development of exciting new technologies in the future.
Current results of suspected UFO metamaterial analysis shows that some consist of 29 to 80 layers made up of microns of dark bismuth, silver magnesium, zinc alloys, and numerous other identifiable materials.
Some of the pieces are tapered in shape, with curvature. All alloys used can be found here on Earth. However, some elements have been identified as obscure purities. These materials are atomically aligned, and scientists have theorized that the manufacture of such materials may have been carried out in a weightless environment, and that the metal alloys were somehow created in a way that is similar to 3D printing and act as superconductors. The spectroscopy revealed the perfect processing of the metamaterial in precise layers. Radiating them in light in the terahertz frequency range can cause them to reduce their weight and resonate a harmonic frequency. Such metamaterials are purposely manufactured, altering the isotopic levels. Such isotopic levels within the metamaterials are not a match with terrestrial isotopic levels of these same alloys. Thus, the manufacture process of the metamaterials may be altering their isotopic signatures. It is also theorized that such metamaterials can produce anti-gravity, lift, and even invisibility. Over the last few months, there have been statements saying that 3D metal printing is advanced technology and that we cannot yet create this.
These statements are inaccurate. In fact, not only are scientists at Duke University in the UK creating metamaterials, but they're also applying terahertz light frequencies to them and causing some unusual responses to take place, which could lead the way to new research. Also, the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory have also been manufacturing 3D metal printing parts for quite a long time.
It's interesting to point out results of experiments carried out on monatomic powder. When applying a terahertz light frequency to the powder, approximately 43% of it seemingly disappears. However, restriction was felt when pushing a pencil through it, thus the powder was there, yet not in the visible spectrum. Scientists theorize that some of the powder was somehow phasing to another reality temporarily, until the light source was removed and the powder returned. The suspected frequency of light applied is that of around 450 to 460 terahertz, the same frequency of light that is produced by our sun at sunset and sunrise, that deep amber color. Also, experiments carried out on suspected UFO metamaterials allegedly show that when applying a particular light frequency, the metamaterials reduce weight and levitate at the same time as producing a frequency of sound within the harmonic range. In 2007, Bjørn Gittel Haag, an assistant professor at the Oxford University College in Halden, Norway, produced a fascinating document entitled Optical Spectrum Analysis of the Hesterland Phenomenon. The Hesterland phenomena seemingly produces a form of ionized gas around itself with dominant chemical elements, suggesting a burning process, and though they are regularly misidentified as natural forms of light phenomena, they have been seen to act in a way suggesting they are somehow conscious or act with intelligence. The location of Hesterland, Norway, lies within a positive magnetic anomaly, and it is suspected that other varied phenomena has been reported there.
Professor Haig also identified that the unidentified aerial phenomenon seen throughout Hasdallen Valley emit a light frequency in the terahertz frequency range and are often described as amber-coloured.
Looking at this phenomenon from an investigatory point, it is important to recognize a possible connection between the phenomenon and the light frequency of terahertz, be it at Hesseldelan, monatomic powder experiments in UFO metamaterials. When researching the Pentagon program AATIP, you quickly discover that another program known as AAWSAP, Advanced Aerospace Weapons System Application Program, seemingly are one of the same. AATIP and TTSA first became known through a series of media postings in regard to unusual flying craft in and around 150 miles from the San Diego, Mexican shoreline, the first of which has become known as the Tic Tac UFO. Apart from forward-facing infrared film of this craft captured by the US Navy being released, there was also an alleged photograph of the Tic Tac UFO released by TTSA during a public seminar. However, this photograph was recognized immediately by investigators at MAPIT, Manchester's Aerial Phenomena Investigation Team based in the UK. The photograph was from one of their investigations carried out in Eccles, Manchester in 2005. Prior to case conclusion, a series of photographs was released onto the internet, featured on the Jeff Rent Sightings radio show website. This was the only location the photographs were featured on the internet. In December 2017, the media announced that TTSA conducted a seminar in regard to the Tic Tac UFO incident where a photograph was shown. The photograph was clearly nothing to do with the Tic Tac UFO, but of a party balloon in the shape of a number 1.
The very same one that was taken over Eccles, Manchester from 2005. There has been no explanation from the TTSA how this photograph became attached to the Tic Tac UFO incident, nor an explanation to where it came from, how was it submitted, and most importantly, why was the photograph manipulated? It had been adjusted to make it look like the blue sky, to look like the sea, as if the photograph was taken from above, looking down on the object.
Though there was no mention or text saying that the photograph was the Tic Tac UFO, it was shown in conjunction to the incident. This is a clever way of misleading the public. It's important to be aware of such psychological tactics, where purpose safeguards are created so not to accuse of purposely misleading the public. Tom DeLonge has also made a number of inaccurate statements, such as claiming a known hoaxed video of a TR-3B triangular craft over France to be authentic. Either Tom made a silly mistake, or again, this was a purpose mislead. Whatever the reason, having Tom speak on behalf of TTSA could seemingly be dangerous. In June and July of 2019, TTSA was involved with bringing a 6-part TV show to our television screens. Numerous well-known researchers have stated that there seemed to be an underlying tone throughout the show. This came in the form of suggestions that the mysterious crafts witnessed by pilots represented the profound phenomenon of true UFO activity.
However, everything about these incidents points to the strange crafts being more likely our own advanced technology, being flown in a location that may be the new Area 51. The location being well out of sight from passing observers 150 miles out at sea in a location that does not have civilian aircraft flying over and not many ships passing through. It is, of course, a special zone for United States naval services to conduct special tests and experiments.
This location is known as a training zone, and coincidentally, most, if not all, of these incidents occurred straight after new high-tech radar systems had been fitted to the US Navy ships. This seems a perfect opportunity to fly exotic aircraft in the vicinity and to test the new installations of high-tech equipment. During the 6-part TTSA series known as Unidentified Inside America's UFO Investigation, Louis Elizondo claimed that the location around Guadalupe Island was situated in a positive magnetic anomaly, and viewers were shown an image.
This image represents inaccurate information yet again, showing positive magnetic anomalies around a small island off the coast of Mexico, where in fact there are none. It would seem that the idea of this true UFO phenomena was being pressed, when in fact the UFOs could very well be just experimental advanced technology that we currently have. If this be the case, then researchers should be asking the question why.
One of the most current forms of research undertaken by Barry and Donna Fitzgerald of Project Doorway is the studies of magnetics and bacteria. They have surmised that a positive magnetic charge can kill bacteria. There are a number of research facilities that are conducting experiments and discovering interesting results. Also, a number of hospitals throughout Europe are now using positive magnetically charged door frames on recovery wards, so to make the location bacterial safe zones. It has been suggested that the positive charge assists with killing bacteria and not allowing as much to pass the magnetic perimeter. It is true that our bodies do require magnetic energy. However, certain fields can help deplete bacteria in given locations. If such a phenomena utilizes locations of positive magnetics, then such locations may act as a bacterial safe zone. If this is the case, we have to assume that the process of utilizing these locations may be a safety protocol, just as a surgeon would clean themselves before entering and after leaving an environment where bacteria is present. In 2015, researchers from the Indian Institute of Science discovered a way to kill bacteria using pulsed magnetic fields. They conducted preliminary trials on infectious bacteria and found that more than half of the bacteria was eliminated when exposed to magnetic fields. Also, scientists at Singapore's Nanyang Technological University have created a magnetic-like coating that traps and destroys 99% of the bacteria and fungi that it encounters. The antibacterial coating has been shown to be effective against superbugs. This research could lead to new wound treatments and even be used to target bacterial infections inside the body without the use of conventional antibiotics. The MMS project, Magnetospheric Multiscale Mission, run by NASA, investigates how the Sun's and Earth's magnetic fields connect and disconnect, explosively transferring energy from one to the other in a process that is called magnetic reconnection. 4 identical instrumented spacecraft measure plasmas, fields, and particles in a near-equatorial orbit that have frequently encountered reconnection in action. The MMS reveals for the first time the small-scale 3-dimensional structure and dynamics of the elusively thin and fast-moving electron diffusion region, better known as portals. It does this in key reconnection regions near Earth, where the most energetic events originate.
Rumours have circulated that the MMS mission is not revealing much data, and that one of the 4 satellites was supposedly flown into a stable electron diffusion region, only to appear 93 million kilometres away near our Sun. Now, of course, attempting to find details about this is next to impossible, but theoretically, numerous researchers believe that flying a satellite into an electron diffusion region would be likely part of the mission and would be there to gather data. It's something likely to be done.
Discovered in numerous official documents, the United States Secretary of Navy is listed as the assignee on several radical aviation technologies patented by an aerospace engineer working at the Naval Air Warfare Center Aircraft Division, NORCAD, headquarters in Paxtuant River, Maryland. One of those patents describes a hybrid aerospace underwater craft, claimed to be capable of extraordinary feats of speed and maneuverability in air, water, and outer space due to a revolutionary electromagnetic propulsion system method.
If you recall, transmedium travel has been listed as one of the 5 observables by ATIP.
The patent is highly complex and describes methods of reducing the mass of an aircraft using various techniques, including the generation of gravity waves, which were first detected in 2016 after being produced when 2 black holes collided. Although the US Navy applied for the patent in 2016 and was granted in 2018, it doesn't necessarily mean the craft has been built and tested.
However, a number of ex-employees of the United States Navy have stated if they've submitted the patent, then that means they already have it.
It is known that a number of patents on new advanced drones were submitted long after they had been designed and test-flown. Details of AATIP were first released in 2017, including reports of a sighting made by fighter pilots from the USS Nimitz. These pilots saw a huge patch of churning, turbulent waters the size of a Boeing 737, suggesting something was beneath the surface of the sea. as well as a tic-tac-shaped aircraft which zoomed off at almost impossibly high speeds. Could it be that the United States government are test-flying exotic experimental aircraft out at sea, 150 miles off the Mexican coastline, in a location that is likely a non-commercial fly zone and shipping zone where the US Navy conduct their own tests? After all, pilots that witnessed these objects were surprised to find that the data recordings of these encounters were lost or removed, and that no high-ranking official did anything with the information, and that they were not even told not to talk about their experience. The likely reason being, as soon as you say, "Don't talk about it," it gives the incident some credence and secrecy. Were such encounters simply brushed under the rug? Very possible, as the whole incident could have simply been a test of a newly installed radar systems on the naval ships. Researcher and author Nick Pope stated, "A hybrid craft capable of flying both in the air and underwater is uncannily similar to what was reported in the USS Nimitz incident from 2004. There was a similar incident of a UFO flying underwater in Puerto Rico in 2013. The possible connection between the USS Nimitz incident and this patent is intriguing, and it's interesting that the US Navy seems to be the link here. In the latest patent, author Salvador Cesar Paez mentions Harold Putoff, a key figure in the AATIP, who commissioned the 37 papers exploring exotic technologies, which were then used by defense intelligence agencies during briefings filed with the US Congress.
Whether these strange craft represent, it's feasible to consider that we do have some incredible technologies, and that the general public and military aircraft pilots are not aware of. And why should they be, after all? Let us not underestimate human capability. It's highly possible that not only do our skies reveal secret exotic aircraft capable of transmedium travel, but also a very real and ancient phenomenon as well that continues to baffle scientists. A phenomenon that we refer to as the real UFOs.